The photos depict Victorian women who have never had their hair cut between 1860 and 1900, with hair extending down below the knee and feet. It is hard to think of how much time it would take to wash and dry so much hair without the modern conveniences. In 1913, the tallest, shortest, and fattest men of Europe were playing cards together: Cornelius Bruns, an unnamed short man, and Canon Colossus. Why the short man was not named in the caption, one wonders. Is it that he was a lesser personality than the rest? Hugo Gernsback is credited with inventing the teleglasses, an early form of virtual reality technology in the 20th century. These unusual devices are described as heavy and clumsy, prompting speculation about their actual functionality versus their role as a curious novelty. In 1920, one of the New York police force was suspended by a girder so high in the city, but no one knows why. The picture asks more questions than it answers. Was it a rescue operation, or a stunt, or a training exercise? Which went awry? The Italian royal family stands upon the stairs in 1905, ready to set out on a trip with what looks to be a baby in a mule seat. One of the commenters joked. The scene unintentionally draws attention to the rather precarious position assigned to the youngest passenger at the strange conveyance system. One of the circus power women, who balances a piano on her chest in 1920, proves her great strength, though the piano is not on her chest. Although her accomplishment is enormous still, the piano seems to be placed on a platform that is resting on her and not on her chest. In the 1940s, a teenage boy creates a romantic moment on Valentine's Day by surprising a girl with a box of candy while covering her eyes. A humorous comment about her future domestic role highlights the era's societal expectations. Estonian women pose in traditional dress in 1913, with two women on the left wearing unusual cultural garments. Commenters wonder what exactly they're wearing, as the outfits look different from typical Estonian clothing, sparking curiosity about regional variations. Beachgoers in Palm Beach, Florida, in 1920, wear modest bathing suits that cover them from neck to knee, with one commenter joking, "Cover up those elbows." The photograph shows how much beach fashion has changed, as even elbows were considered somewhat scandalous to expose. Soviet peasants listened to the radio for the first time in 1928, their faces showing amazement at hearing voices coming from the box. One jokes, "In the Soviet Union, the radio listens to you," capturing the irony of Stalin's surveillance state that would soon control every aspect of life. German World War I veteran Hans Lange holds a portrait of himself as a 19-year-old soldier in 1918, photographed in 1998 at age 99. It feels shocking that a WWI veteran was still alive in 1998, making it difficult to truly comprehend the passage of time and history. Patricia O'Keefe, an 8-year-old girl, carries 200-pound Wayne Long on her back in an unusual display of incredible strength in 1940. The amazing feat demonstrates extraordinary physical power in such a young child, with many commenters noting her achievement deserves proper recognition. Robert Earl Hughes, recorded as the heaviest person at 1,071 pounds in the 1950s, could walk unaided despite his weight. He died at 32, highlighting the severe health risks associated with extreme obesity before modern medical advancements. This happens when a circus performer relaxes in a 1933 aquarium car full of crocodiles in Berlin, resulting in a weird and dangerous sight. The photo transcends way beyond what and deep into why. Why are they thinking this was a good and safe idea? In 1916, New York, a blind woman begs on the streets with a metal license badge, necessary for legal begging, distinguishing her as part of the deserving poor eligible for charity, unlike others deemed unworthy. This image depicts Dutch women in 1919, wearing traditional costumes characteristic of the Netherlands, featuring distinctive headpieces that expose only their bangs. The viewers display a genuine curiosity about the cultural significance of these unique garments. This photograph was taken in the early 1950s with the then King of Saudi Arabia, Ibn Saud, and his sons, Prince Faisal and Prince Saud. As one commenter remarks, it is clear that Faisal had followed the example of his mother family, since he bears no resemblance to his father and brother. Located in 1898 in Hamburg, Germany is the oldest house, which was constructed in 1524, and it is still in existence, having gone through almost 400 years. It was torn down to the protests of local people on December 8, 1910, and centuries of history and architectural heritage were destroyed. In Hibiya Park in Tokyo, Japan in 1912, a pair of geisha wore beautiful kimonos and drove around in early automobiles. The photograph captures Japan's fascinating blend of ancient tradition and modern technology during the Meiji era of rapid westernization. German battleship Gneisenau sits at Kiel shipyard in 1940, showing devastating damage from a torpedo fired by British submarine HMS Clyde. The massive hole in the ship's hull demonstrates the destructive power of naval warfare during World War II's Atlantic battles. A Shan princess poses elegantly in Rangoon, Burma in 1907, wearing traditional royal dress and jewelry representing her high status. The photograph preserves a glimpse of Burmese royalty before British colonial rule fundamentally changed the region's political structures. This is Norval Sinclair Marley, a British Army veteran and white Jamaican officer who was the father of legendary musician Bob Marley. His military service and mixed-race family were novelties of the time, and his son would later revolutionize music history. In 1915, workers were proudly positioned over the East River on the Brooklyn Bridge on the cables with no safety device. The hazardous job demanded nerves of steel and perfect balance in keeping one of the most important transportation links of New York City. Czech Legion soldiers are standing on an armored train in the Russian Civil War in 1918, with their many weapons, and are about to engage in a battle. These forces engaged in a war on several fronts in the anarchist years after the Russian Revolution, in a bid to flee to their motherland. In 1918, factory workers in Lancashire are seen idling on their freshly made asbestos mattresses with no idea of the horrible health risks that awaited them. Asbestos is a deadly carcinogen that causes severe lung disease, and this photograph is now horrifyingly ironic decades after it was taken. One of the most brutal campaigns of World War II is depicted through a Hungarian soldier crossing the frozen River of Don near Stalingrad in 1942. Eastern Front circumstances and the desperate fighting led to disastrous losses by Axis, forces caught in the counteroffensives by the Soviet. The film is set in New York City on New Year's Eve, December 31st, 1941, showcasing celebrations despite America's recent entry into World War II. It portrays Americans striving for normalcy and optimism amidst the reality of young men preparing to fight overseas. Around 1930, the shortest and tallest workers in Ringling Barnum and Bailey Circus, Jack Earl and Harry Dahl, stood together. The height disparity made a sideshow show highly popular, but nowadays we can see the exploitation of having people with physical differences on display. On the night of the premiere of The 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T, on October 11, 1953, Marilyn Monroe goes out on a date with her co-star, Tommy Rettig. They were co-promoting their movie, River of No Return. And the young Tommy had not yet encountered his future addiction problems. An Azerbaijan shepherd of the village of Karakechdi is posing with his children in the 1980s in the traditional outfits of the area. The photo has captured a lifestyle that has stayed the same over centuries in the Caucasus Mountains. British soldiers from the North Staffordshire Regiment stand at Bilajari Station in Baku, Azerbaijan, in late August 1918, during intervention in the Russian Civil War. These troops were among thousands of foreign soldiers who briefly occupied parts of the former Russian Empire after the Bolshevik Revolution. Soldiers from the Honduran National Guard stand on a downtown Tegucigalpa street in 1963, during a period of political instability. The photograph captures Central America during the Cold War era, when military governments frequently controlled the region's politics. On November 21, 1944, a jeep was decorated by the 1st French Army in the Mulhouse region, with a captured picture of Hitler, satirizing the Nazi commander, as the French troops liberated their country after 4 years of German occupation. In 1921, Mahatma Gandhi, at age 51, initially appeared in Western attire, but soon adopted a plain loincloth, symbolizing his identification with the impoverished citizens of India oppressed under British colonial rule. Russian families are seen gathering around as famine ravages the areas around the Volga and Ural rivers, killing 5 million people. Drought exacerbated the economic disaster of World War I and Civil War, but was rescued by American humanitarian intervention. Members of the Ku Klux Klan held a meeting at Stone Mountain, Georgia, the site of their first meeting in 1915. Klan membership rose during the 1920s, but declined after the conviction of their Indiana leader for the murder of Madge Oberholzer, a young white woman. Scott and Zelda Fitzgerald impersonate a young couple in 1921 when they go back to Minnesota and have a baby daughter, Frances. The Jazz Age icons were still in their youth, and the most renowned novel of Scott, The Great Gatsby, was to be composed. Mary Anderson, the director of the Women's Bureau of the Labor Department, was a prominent female leader in the federal government. Over 25 years under 5 presidents, she championed intersectional feminism and advocated for equal wages and expanded rights for women in the workplace. Hudson factory workers, active from 1909 to 1954 in Detroit, Michigan, assembled cars and produced the Super 6 engine, positioning the Hudson Motor Car Company as the 3rd largest car manufacturer in America, although they fell short of Ford and Chevrolet's production levels. Washington, D.C., native Margaret Gorman won the first ever Miss America Golden Mermaid crown, plus $100 when she was just 16 years old. When another teenager won in 1933, the contestant age range was raised to 18 to 26, and the prize eventually became a college scholarship. Bristol fighter airplanes dropped smoke bombs and fireworks on a fake German village built from scrap metal at the 1921 Royal Air Force pageant. Over 80,000 spectators cheered at Hendon Aerodrome as the mock village, set up as enemy headquarters, went up in spectacular flames. The man is proudly standing with his new Triumph motorcycle in 1907 on a glass negative that has managed to survive over 100 years. The first motorcycle symbolizes the freedom and technological advancement in the days when a car was a luxury and a costly one. A photographer captured images of nuclear tests at Bikini Atoll in 1946, standing near explosions without protective gear. This nonchalant approach to radiation risks is alarming by today's safety standards, given the known health hazards associated with such exposure. Marilyn Monroe gets a star from soldiers on top of a cake to thank her for her shows in February 1954. The beloved actress frequently performed for American troops, boosting morale with her glamorous presence and genuine appreciation for their service and sacrifice. A Soviet partisan fighter posed with weapons in 1943, exemplifying the resistance against Nazi occupation. These guerrilla fighters disrupted supply lines, gathered intelligence, and proved that Soviet territories remained unconquered by the Germans. In October 1945, the Japanese Type D submarines were in a dry dock at Kura Naval Base, Japan, after the war ended. These suicide submarines were made to attack Allied vessels, and these were the final measures of desperation by Japan, who knew it was about to lose. In 1898, children in Salem, North Carolina, posed on large Amazon water lily pads that became popular in affluent gardens, as their substantial leaves could support the weight of small children, creating enchanting photographs cherished by Victorian families. The first photographic record available of a tornado was taken in 1884, in which the funnel cloud was touching down in the background. Prior to photography, these destructive storms could only be described using words. Thus, this scientific record made the history of meteorology priceless. In 1895, Frederick Douglass posed for a photo with his grandson Joseph, just months before Douglass's death at 77. This image represents 3 generations of slavery to freedom, highlighting the significant progress and ongoing struggles of African Americans in post-Civil War America. Charlie Chaplin arrived back in England in 1921 after a 9-year absence to publicize his new film, The Kid. Thousands of adoring fans greeted him just miles from his impoverished South London childhood streets, and he threw carnations from his Ritz Hotel window to the crowd below. On its 4th test flight, the R-38 type airship overflies and lands in the Humber estuary in northeast England, where it blows up. 5 Americans and Britons out of the total 49 on board were the only survivors of this structural failure in what was by then the largest airship in history. On May 31st to June 1st, 1921, the Tulsa Race Massacre resulted in the deaths of 100 to 300 black individuals in the Greenwood district, known as Black Wall Street. Thousands of armed white men, some deputized by city officials, looted and destroyed 35 blocks of the area, leaving behind only iron bedsteads. In May 1921, during the Irish War of Independence, the IRA occupied and burned the Custom House in Dublin. This event occurred despite the signing of the Anglo-Irish Treaty, which led to Ireland becoming a British dominion. Conflicts persisted until 1949, when Ireland achieved republic status. In 1921, British women were permitted to serve in police forces, but the power of arrest was not handed to them until 1932. Dorothy Pitot. They were only involved in warning and assisting young girls and women, but not law enforcement as such. In 1921, Rabindranath Tagore visited London to meet Secretary Edwin Montagu regarding future colleges in India. Later that year, he founded Visva Bharati College, which became a university after India's independence in 1947. Sarah Bernhardt, a pioneering French actress and one of the first genuine female celebrities, died at the age of 78. Known for her cult of personality, she achieved fame through world tours, iconic theatrical performances, love affairs, exotic pets, and even sleeping in a satin-lined coffin.